So what's up, Dave?
Not much, Tim.
How you been?
Good, good.
Good, good. Have good holidays. Good
I
New
did.
Year's.
I did. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
yeah, we did. Just hung around here. Did you go anywhere?
I did actually. Usually we go to the Atlanta area to visit my family, but we decided to do that at Thanksgiving this year so we could stay with my wife's family this year on Christmas. So
Okay, because your Cotton's from Virginia, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you're not.
I am not. I
No.
actually grew up in upstate New York, a little town called Oswego. It's on the east end of Lake Ontario, um, otherwise known as the Snow Belt.
The snow belt.
Yeah, I actually think right at this time they're getting pretty whacked with snow right now.
Yeah.
Um, Before I met my wife, I had always wanted to move a little further south to get away from that. But um, when I did meet my wife, that that certainly hurried things up. She certainly didn't want to live up there, and you
Can't
know,
blame
no, no. That and the tax situation in New York as it is, not not taxes aren't good anywhere, of course, but taxes in New York to own a home and own land are outrageous to say the least. So,
her. Yeah, it's like Jersey. Same way.
when I did meet my wife, and I took a trip up home with her to meet my mom, and my mom was telling a story about trying to hire one of the local kids in the neighborhood to shovel the snow off of her roof, and and my wife, of course, didn't have any idea what she was talking about. So I explained to her, you got to get the snow off the roof or it'll cave in. It gets heavy. And,
Yeah.
my mom's a 70-something-year-old lady. She can't do it herself, of course. So, yeah, it was from that point, she was like, I'm never going to live anywhere where I got to worry about that. So,
So
understandable.
what's in Oswego, man? What's there? I've
Uh,
never been there. I
well,
mean, I know 9 miles there and
yeah,
Fitch,
yeah.
right?
There's a couple nuclear plants there. It's very well known in around the world actually as a salmon fishing because the salmon spawn up the Oswego River out of the lake, so it's very popular with the fishing crowd. Um, as far as touristy, other than going down to the end of the river and looking at the lake, there's a nice lighthouse there, but not a very touristy situation. Small town, probably I don't know. I'd guess somewhere around 12 to 15,000 people, local residents. There is a state college there, so of course the population grows during school. But beautiful little town. My opinion, doesn't take advantage of what it could. Um, they do have a local racetrack that's very popular in that area as well.
Is that where they
And
run the mile?
no, they what used to be the mile in Syracuse now they run what they call super dirt week. Used to be at the Syracuse Mile, but a local businessman came with a proposition to build a whole complex and tried to get some money through the state, and the state made a promise to him. I'm speaking off the cuff here because I really don't know all the details, but apparently whatever that business deal was, it fell through, and so Oswego Speedway stepped up and said, "Hey, Bristol put dirt on their track. We could put dirt on our track and give it a whirl." And the state gave them a bunch of money, and they went ahead with it. They struggled for a couple of years with it because they, putting asphalt or having an asphalt track and putting dirt on it for a week is, a pretty big task. And but they seem to have figured it out. It's not a mile anymore. The track is actually a 5/8 mile, so shortened it up a bit. And of course,
Yeah,
all
it
the old heads hate that, of course, because
yeah,
they want it to be the Syracuse Mile. Um,
hard
but
to find a mile track.
well, it is, and shortly after the business deal kind of got going, the state where the Syracuse Mile was at the state fairgrounds, and the state decided that well, we don't really need a mile long racetrack horse track anymore, and they leveled it. and opened up all that area to the fairgrounds for the state fair. So the super dirt folks were kind of at a loss. They needed somewhere, and Oswego Speedway kind of stepped up and said, "Hey, we'll try this." And it's probably been 6 or 7 years now that they've been running it there every fall in October, I believe. So yeah,
Yeah. What was it like in Oswego? Like when you grew up there?
yeah, I
So
grew
like,
up there. I
is it
stayed there
a?
till I was probably 40 years old. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, there were
Is it a
many
bar town?
harsh winters. Yeah, yeah,
Harsh
very
winter.
well known as a bar town, because it was a it's a port city. It's actually nicknamed the Port City. Um, so it, as uh, local lore goes, that being a port city, when sailors come into port to drop off their goods, they usually frequent someplace local to drink, and it was very well known as a town. Plus, with the college, you got college kids coming into town, and before the drinking age raised to 21, you had 18-year-old kids coming to town, and local businesses, of course, took advantage of that, of course. And
Sure. And
yeah,
then
I
outage
mean,
time.
yeah, oh, at outage time as well. Yeah, at the nuke plant, there was at one time when they were building 9 Mile 2, which is in the mid '80s, early '80s to mid '80s when it finished. Um, the road to access the plant was it was like a flea market. It's the best way I could describe it. I mean, you could pull over at any point on the road and buy yourself a sub sandwich, a six
Yeah.
pack of beer. If you could think of it, you could probably buy it on the road on the way to the plant. So, yeah, it was hopping in the '80s. It was
Yeah.
like an old Wild West town in the '80s, because of the plant and of course, a lot of migrant workers. And speaking of migrant workers, a lot of migrant workers in the area in the summertime, because they have what they call muck farms, basically, where they grow uh, cabbage, onions, stuff that kind of grows in the mud,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Right.
so they had a lot of in the summertime. They had an influx of migrant workers that worked the farms as well. So, and they actually had man camps at the muck farms where they housed them. So yeah,
Oh wow.
so it's a cool little town. Um, it's kind of the feeling the effects of every other city in the United States. It's not a lot going on there right now. As far as for an 18-year-old kid to get out of high school and do a job, I mean, what are his choices? And not a lot of choices there. And that's everywhere. But a little town like that was booming at one time. It's tough. It's tough for a local. And
It,
I
it
was
was like that.
fortunate. I was fortunate because of the way I work. I'm kind of a migrant worker, so
Yeah. Right. That's what I was going to say.
I could kind of live anywhere I wanted to and still do my job. So um, yeah, it was fortunate for me. But
Yeah. So you just it's the same way for you when you got out of school. You had to find nothing there, right? You couldn't get a
yeah,
job.
no. Well, when I first got out of high school, there was a little bit there was some things to do as far as businesses where you could go to work. We had a Miller Brewing company was 5 miles down the road. We had Alcan, which is a aluminum
Yeah.
manufacturing and supplier. Um, there was you could go to work at 9 Mile if you had a way to get in there. But working at 9 Mile was it, it was going to be a part time job, because certainly you couldn't. Unless you were a degreed person, you weren't going to go like into operations or into, unless you were part of a union, and I wasn't. So the unions were strong in the '80s. There, they had a pretty good hold on it. Doing all the construction at 9 Mile 2, plus the years prior with 9 Mile 1 and Fitzpatrick's right next door, which is now all the same company. But back then they were flourishing. I did not when I first got out of high school. I was a wandering. I would guess I was a bum. Let's Put it straight, I wanted to chase girls and drink beer, and
Yeah.
I did that for a couple of years and worked odd jobs, lumberyard. I was a cook for a while. I mean, just
Yeah.
dumb stuff to get me by to get to the weekend. And my father kind of wrangled me one day and said, it's time to grow up.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was. I was heading nowhere fast, and I wasn't doing anything that, I wasn't robbing banks or anything, but
Yeah.
I wasn't towing the line either. You know what I mean? So, um, you
Any
know,
nights in jail?
maybe, um,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I ran with a group of guys that we were called townies. Uh, because we had at certain times of the year, like I was talking about before, we had a very large influx of college kids, and to me, the college kids appeared to be, when they went to the state schools, it seemed to me they were like, my parents are rich, we're from Long Island, we can't get into Columbia, so here's my choice, right? So you got a bunch of 18-year-old kids running amok in my town, as I thought, and my group liked to fight with them. The best way I could say it. Yeah, we they came into our places where we like to hang out when they weren't there, and they we didn't necessarily like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
How'd you how'd you learn? I mean, besides just taking your licks on the street, was you like a high school boxer, high school
no, I
wrestler?
wrestled. I started wrestling when I was about 7 years old. We had a program in
Okay.
town. It was a pee wee program called the Mat Rats, and it was started by who eventually turned into one of my best friends. His dad started this program to start feeding, because he was the high school coach, just to feed his program.
Yeah.
And he was pretty instrumental in my life. He was like a second dad to me eventually. Um, but yeah, hockey's big in my area, as you can imagine, being from the Northeast. Small town had, I think there's 4 working rinks right now. So yeah, I played one year of hockey, and I went to talk to my dad about signing up the next year, and I had to buy all new equipment again because nothing fit from the year before, right? And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, here comes $150 bill. Why don't we try out for this Mat Rats, where all you need is sneakers, t-shirt, and shorts, and you already got that."
Yeah.
So, so that was the end of my hockey career. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and I actually eventually met some lifelong friends through it, and yeah, so yeah, learning to wrestle, hanging around with a bunch of uh, hormone fueled 17-year-olds out on the street on a Friday night. Yeah, we were looking for trouble probably,
Yeah. And
and
you
it
got
wasn't
some,
hard to find, to be honest with you.
yeah,
So
right. And you got some, I don't want to say talent, but you got some training behind you. So
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
like
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
you're
So
not
yeah,
walking into it blind,
no, no, I
Yeah.
didn't just get beat up one day and go, you know what, I got to get good at this.
Yeah.
It was kind of an, I hate to say natural progression, but it kind of was.
They
Y-
still have wrestling there, do you know?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do. I was telling you about earlier. He passed away about, it's probably been 10 or 12 years ago now.
Mhm.
But his legacy from that kind of hangs on. I think the coach at this time at the high school was also a wrestler there. Um, his son-in-law is, or was, I think he's retired now, was the actual coach at the state university there. So I mean, it was very ingrained and intertwined in my life when I was growing up. And in the family, they were a family of 6, and they were like Grand Central Station for all kids to hang out at, because we just all everybody hung out there. He's got 3 sisters, he's got 2 brothers. There were 6 kids. They always had 15 kids in their house at any given time. So yeah, it was kind of neat. Yeah, they still wrestle. They still wrestle. Um, I don't think they're on the map quite like they were when we were in high school, as far as like any sport, high school sport, it it's hard to get kids to get into sports these days. I think if once they started soccer and they play soccer all through, then that's what they're going to do. I think.
Yeah.
And back when I was in high school, you play 3 sports in a year. 2 or 3 anyway. I played football and I wrestled. So um, yeah, I mean,
Wrestling, we never had wrestling when I was in school, and I kind of wish we did because it gives you an outlet. It gives you
oh yeah. And we took out. A lot of people look at wrestling. They're like, two sweaty dudes rolling around on a mat doesn't kind of sound
yeah,
cool. And then you wrap them up one time and they're like, okay, I got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
That started. UFC came from that. And those two guys are
absolutely. Between the
rap
jiu-jitsu and the grappling and all that.
traveling
Yeah,
and all that. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's a mix of the boxing in there and all the fighting. I'm
those
I'm
guys make millions.
oh yeah. I'm certainly not saying I would have been ever good, but I wish that was another outlet once I got out of high school.
Yeah, just
Because
keep
that would have been
going.
a cool way to train and stay in shape.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it wouldn't be out of shape as I am.
Yeah, well, me either. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'd still be doing it at close to 60 years old, but
yeah. Wrestling is it's a good thing. But getting back to Oswego, what was the town? I'm trying to get a picture in my head. I've never been there. I've never been 9 Mile Fits, anything, but like,
all
uh,
right. Well, if you take Route 81, which is a north-south interstate uh, on the east, in the East Coast, and drive straight north, and just before you get to Canada, you get on an expressway and drive another 20 minutes, and you hit Lake Ontario, and that's pretty much Oswego. It's right on the mouth of the Oswego River. It's beautiful in the summer, um, all 3 weeks,
yeah,
and
all 3 weeks of
yeah,
summer.
yeah. Uh, it's hard town in the winter. With the snow, of course.
Yeah, and Horstown leads to
Yeah,
a vibrant nightlife, I guess you say.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah.
kind of stuck in
Yeah.
bad politics and
A lot of the bars in town are. I mean, if you walked up and said, "Hey, there's a bar," but it looks like somebody's house, you know, and it
yeah,
was at one time. They just turned the front room into a bar and opened up. And there's a lot of different. As small of a town as it is, and it's getting away from this a little bit, but it had a lot of different neighborhoods in it. Like there was a very pronounced Polish section, there was a very pronounced Irish section, there was a very pronounced Italian section, and it's not so much like that anymore. But when I was a kid growing up, for sure, yeah,
yeah,
we actually, excuse my French, but they had an area. One neighborhood was actually called Pollock Hill, and I think it's called that
right,
today. I mean,
yeah,
as possibly insensitive as that may be, it's just where all the Polish people went. The Catholic Church in that area was where all the Polish went to go to church. St. John's, where my dad went to, was more of an Irish type neighborhood church, and then you had uh, the other churches were in the Italian, and it was weird. They were very close neighborhoods, but in those days they were like miles apart, people wise.
yeah. And nobody ventured out of their area. You
No,
had
you
your
didn't
own.
go. You go 4 blocks, and you know, and in that small town, 4 blocks isn't very far. Uh,
No,
but yeah, I think a lot of older people that still live there strive for that to come back, because it's
yeah,
not like that anymore. It's it's just not. It's not.
yeah,
It's a lot of influx of people from other places. Not that that's a bad thing, it's just different, right? And
right.
yeah, so
Yeah, you
it's
miss
different.
it.
I
You,
I miss it at times. When I get on the Weather Channel and I see that they're getting 8 feet of snow overnight, I don't miss that much.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't like spending 2 or 3 hours in the morning, shoveling my driveway so I could get out and finally get to the end of it, and then the snowplow comes by and dumps another hour's worth at the end of my driveway. I don't miss
right.
that at all. What I do miss is I do have some family that I still keep in touch with there, and I have a lot of friends there. Um, um, miss my friends there. I definitely do. I wish I could hang out with them a lot more often. Um, and I miss that for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I never see. I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in the middle of the country.
Yeah,
Never really had any like nearest neighbor, but that wasn't family. Was a mile away. All that
yeah,
stuff. So I never
yeah.
didn't have that. What you're talking about, like
And
the
actually, I grew up
blocks. You
probably
know.
the first 13 years of my life, 14 years of my life. We actually lived outside of the city limits, so we were kind of in the country, I guess. But it wasn't like um, and when I say it's hard to call my town a city because when you think city, you're thinking big, and it's really
Yeah.
not that big. But it's got sidewalks and it's got streets, so you call it a city. But yeah, so um, but cool little town. I hate to see it's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit with um, some bad politics and not being very progressive, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. Get those little towns get politics get
Sure,
bad.
sure. And it's
You
always
know.
had, there's always been families, right? You
Yeah.
say it like that, but if you were the person whose uncle was the police chief and your dad was the mayor, you're in a pretty good spot.
You had carte blanche to run
Well,
wild.
yeah, and I'm not saying they did, but they could have, and some did for
Yeah.
sure.
Some
Some,
did.
yeah, oh, sure, absolutely.
Had any mayors arrested or
Oh yeah,
chiefs of police took to jail?
oh
Any of
yeah,
that stuff?
yeah. We
Yeah.
uh we actually had a pretty popular guy around town, local businessman who became mayor. And I'm not saying anything out of pocket here because it's all public knowledge because he spent time in prison. But
Okay.
what he spent time in prison for was soliciting a prostitution who ended up turning out to be a minor.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That'll
and
get you every time.
yeah, and it was a sting operation. They were out for him,
Ah.
and he fell right into it. So, but yeah, I guess he had some drugs on him as well at the time. I think that
Okay.
I don't know the whole story, but that may have been what is possible might be his payment opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, and he was one of them guys that was in the clique, I guess. But he was a local businessman, owned a electrical company, and probably made a crap ton of money out of 9 Mile and other local businesses. And when he became mayor, I think everybody loved him. And then I think there were some people that kind of saw what he was doing outside of his office and went, you know what? Let's take a little look into this, and they did, and
Yeah.
found out he wasn't the straight up guy that they thought he was. But
They probably get reelected.
yeah, yeah, he probably could. Yeah, I mean he's out of prison now. I mean he
Yeah.
actually his son actually owns a bar in town now. So I think his son owns it on paper because of course his father couldn't get a liquor license, through the state because of being a
Gotcha.
convicted felon.
Yeah.
So he pretty much runs the. Last time I went to that place, he was kind of he was there taking care of stuff. So
Yeah. I got
yeah.
you. That's a lot of that
And
goes
that
on.
that's small town stuff, buddy.
Small
That's
town politics,
oh
man.
yeah,
Got
absolutely, absolutely.
probably got all the cops he's still friends with.
Oh, I'm
Probably
sure.
hired. Had a hand in hiring most of them,
Oh,
and
absolutely,
you
absolutely.
know.
There's a lot of
So
that small town politics stuff. It and that's every small town. So
yeah, that's right. So you left Oswego for your wife, basically.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Um,
What was that transition like down to?
well, it wasn't bad because my local office of who I work for is here, so I'd been here
Oh
a
yeah.
few times. So um, when we actually met and got together, um, we both worked for the same company and didn't really know each other. Um, I was going to Bike Week in Myrtle Beach, and through mutual friends, we met there, and kind of been together ever since.
Oh, you
Um,
met at Bike Week?
yeah, we met in Myrtle
Yeah.
Beach Bike Week,
Okay.
and I was just going down there because I'd never been, and I wanted to go. I heard a bunch of people were going, and like I said, mutual friends, and we met through mutual friends, and kind of the way it happened was when the night we met, um, we were kind of shooting the breeze and getting along pretty good or whatever. And one of our mutual friends kind of got everybody together and said, "Hey, look, we're going to this place tomorrow," and everybody made a plan to go. And when I got there, it was me, my wife to be, the other guy and his wife, and no one else showed up. So I guess that kind of could be considered our first date, although it wasn't really set up that way. We kind of just hit it off that night pretty well. We ended up staying out pretty late, and then went and got some breakfast afterwards, and we pretty much been together ever since.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, yeah. So the transition here, I still was living in New York at the time, and uh, we got to, once things started getting serious, it was like, all right, yeah, um, I'm coming down there. It's this 9 hour drive is too much.
yeah,
She did it a few times, I did it a few times, and it was pretty obvious we wanted to be together. So I came down here in, I think, 2006 was the first year I came down here, and she had a nice little apartment, so I moved myself right in.
yeah.
So
Was you working for I guess it's been a Riva at the time
yeah,
already?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I started with Ariva. It was actually Framatome at the time when I started, and I started there in 19. The first phone call would have been in 1997, and agreed to go to work for him, but I didn't actually uh, sign on until 98, January of 98. So
yeah,
yeah, I've been down here several times. Um, I I had no idea what to expect when I came down here. I was just thinking Bible Belt, hick town, you know,
well,
and not to say I didn't come from a redneck town up north, but you have certain preconceived notions about different things, and I was certainly a Yankee for sure. Uh,
yeah.
Coming to a town south of the Mason-Dixon line, and they did not disappoint. I found them to be very, in my mind, country.
Yeah,
So yeah, I didn't dislike the town, um, but I knew right away I was in the Bible Belt, and
yeah.
for me,
Especially there with Liberty and
yeah,
everything.
yeah, Liberty University's here, and Jerry Falwell's here, and yeah, it's I had, like I said, I had some preconceived notions, and they um they they didn't disappoint when I got here for sure. They
Okay.
uh they definitely it was different from my upbringing for sure. I mean, not to say church, it was a non-existent thing in my town, but it was pretty much every church was a Catholic church. I mean, seven
Right.
churches in a small town, and every one of them's a saint something, you know,
Yeah.
and they were all Catholic. Catholic, and you come down here and you got Baptist churches, and it was a whole different world for me.
Right. I know, like it is different. Like when you go up north, especially I had never been up like the real northeast, and we went up there to Connecticut.
Mm.
And man, it was like it was different. I mean, people are fine, but the way they move and talk and
Oh yeah,
work and
yeah,
stuff, it was just like because I've never been really that far northeast. I've been deep south all the way to the west coast,
right.
Minnesota, but never up in there. And it's just every time I go somewhere, it's weird how I always try to make note of the differences, of how that people talk and how they do things and how they
Yeah,
may
yeah,
work
yeah.
and don't work and move around and
Definitely
eat.
things are definitely different in the Northeast for sure.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a little bit
totally
faster
different.
pace.
Yeah,
Um, One of the first times I traveled with my job, um, I'll tell you another funny story about that. But
yeah,
uh, coming down south, I didn't, I'm used to going to say McDonald's and walking in, getting my Big Mac, and walking back out.
yeah.
It,
Right.
it's not that way in the South. You you may be waiting for your Big Mac for 30 minutes, and I
Yeah,
didn't understand that. You go to a fast food joint, it's supposed to be fast, right?
Yeah,
it was different. I didn't understand the pace. I guess
yeah,
it took me a little bit to get used to that.
yeah. It's
And
a
I
little
don't
different.
and
Then you,
now I could care less, what the pace is,
yeah,
I mean, whether it be quick or slow, I'm just trying to get through it, you know what I mean? So,
yeah. And then you go over to. I know we spent some time in England together,
mhm.
and you go over there, and it's like they put the brakes on.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just
that's a
like,
whole nother world, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole. Except for the freaking sidewalk, man.
Yeah,
If anybody from England ever hears this podcast, you guys need to pick a side
yeah,
because they
absolutely.
are all over the place on them sidewalks. It's like,
Yeah,
get out of the way.
it's like complete chaos. Look, we get it. You drive on the other side of the road. I, we adjust to that, right? We're visitors. But the whole sidewalk thing, I mean, it just depends on who you're passing. It just
Yeah,
really depends on who you're passing, what side of the sidewalk they're going to pass you on. You just don't know.
yeah,
So,
just yeah, because you can just see, and they won't like walking down. We've walked down like downtown London or Norwich or Ipswich. Even there'll be four of them taking up the whole sidewalk, and they're not none of them moving.
no,
You have
no,
to step off and let them by, and then step back on. And
exactly.
it's like
It's just complete chaos.
this
The
is complete
pedestrian traffic there is just complete chaos for sure.
chaos. Because and the towns are chaos because the streets are about as big as
Well,
a
yeah, they're like,
driveway.
literally go past most of them now when you get outside the big city, of course. But
Yeah,
yeah, and the hedgerows, and yeah, it's
yeah, the hedgerow,
whole
man.
different world over there for sure, for sure.
Yeah, you lose a hubcap pretty easy over there.
Yeah, that you could. May know a little something about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
did you lose a hubcap?
I may have. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I was 100 yards away from the Hertz in London, and yeah, I lost it.
I got lucky this last time I was over. I brought it back. No, not even a scratch.
Well, they said they were gonna,
Got
they
lucky.
when I turned it in, they said they were gonna contact me about it, but I haven't heard a thing about it. So maybe they just went, it's a wash. He's had this car for almost 3 months now, so I guess
Yeah,
we'll take the
the hubcap.
yeah.
Yeah. So jump back. You still say you're going to tell me a funny story about
Oh,
going
me
the
going
first
to the
time.
south. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first place I ever went was in uh, first southern nuclear plant I ever traveled to was in North Carolina. Um, I'd never been to North Carolina before. Uh, Pretty sure the farthest I've been south was somewhere in Pennsylvania. And so we get on this plane and we go down south, and I'm getting along just fine. And it's not like it's a different language or anything. But anyway, the first day we're at site, I decided to go to the cafeteria to get some lunch, and it's fried chicken, of course. And I'm looking, and I said, give me a piece of that cake. And, it's no frosting on it. It must be pretty sweet. Uh, so I get this cake, and I finish up my fried chicken lunch or whatever, and I take a bite into this cake, and I'm like, that is not cake. So that was my first experience with cornbread.
Cornbread.
Yeah, yeah. I had
Was it? So it
never
wasn't sweet cornbread.
it was not. It was just regular cornbread, and until that time, I really didn't even know what cornbread was, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, uh, a little surprised. Things are different for sure. Grown to
Yeah.
like cornbread. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, I just wasn't ready for that. I was thinking cake and not cornbread.
Yeah. Yeah. That was Brunswick? I'm guessing.
Brunswick. Yeah, it's the first time I ever
Yeah.
been to Brunswick. It was in the early
Yeah.
'90s. Yeah, yeah.
And that place.
Yeah, that's a different kind of place. Beautiful
Different
place on
kind
the
of
water
place.
in the summertime, but
Yeah. It's a good. Yeah, it's a good place. I don't
yeah,
say nothing bad about it. It's
nah,
a good place. Been to worse. Let's put it that way.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I know you're big into. Uh, I want to talk about this because I've you've got me into watching the viral cop videos.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually
Yeah,
watching a few this morning before I took a shower,
yeah.
to my wife's
I have,
disdain.
yeah. I mean, it is. I'm torn between those videos because it makes every good cop look bad,
Yeah, I am as well.
but
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 purely the
in,
entertainment factor, but if nothing else,
yeah, the entertainment factor
it
is.
is. And people are people, right? People react to
Yeah,
different situations in different ways. It just seems to me, and I'm sure, I'm getting one side of the story when you watch those, but man, there's a lot of people who are willing to lay down and just be told what to do.
Yeah.
And I think that police officers have gotten very accustomed to that. And when someone says no, they don't know how to react, which makes
Yeah.
great video.
Just make great video.
Which makes
Great.
great.
But
It is. It really is.
yeah, I keep waiting for this turn to happen because there's enough videos out there that these cops ought to know, like, that you're being recorded and just calm down,
Yeah.
do it a different way. But they don't, man.
They don't, and I
They're
think that comes with being a police officer. I think that being a
yeah,
police officer takes a certain kind of person, and
yeah,
you get through your academy, and they're giving you all this responsibility, and those egos get big, and even when they know they're wrong, a lot of times, and you've seen it as well. Even when they know they're wrong, they just can't back out. They get themselves both feet in and just don't know how to get back out, and their ego doesn't let them. And that's what
yeah.
makes the best video. You know,
That is.
what I really hate to see is when it starts to get violent.
Yeah,
Just because I say no to you or I flip you off or cuss you or whatever, if I'm not breaking the law, your job pretty much says you got to move along and go, you know what? I didn't really like that and it hurt my feelings, but there really isn't anything I can do about it. You know what I mean? But their egos don't allow it. So,
yeah. Some of them are graphic. Like I watched one the other day where and he got off. That was the thing. It was a follow up where he had slammed like a 80-year-old man to the ground
yeah, yeah,
and handcuffed him. I'm like, there is no way a 27-year-old cop has any business slamming an 80-year-old unarmed
yeah.
man
No, just
to the
because you didn't
ground. I
like
don't
what he
care
said.
what's
Just because you
just
didn't
because
like
you didn't like what he said or what he did, and then he got off because of his immunity.
Yeah, and see that's the other thing. I think, and I certainly don't want to say I'm completely educated about it, but it certainly does seem that these police officers get away with a lot hiding behind that
Yeah,
qualified immunity. And it's not
yeah,
just police officers; it's ambulance drivers. I know of a story of a person whose grandfather was run over by a an ambulance and died, killed him. And there was no charges brought against the ambulance driver because of qualified immunity.
oh wow, I didn't know they
Yeah,
had that.
yeah,
I know they have it. I know
yeah,
cops have it and judges have it.
yeah. No, the qualified immunity is pretty wide. In a civil servant type job, you fall under that qualified immunity.
Mhm.
As far as I know, I'm certainly not an expert.
Yeah,
Um,
because these crazy videos have educated me too. Like I didn't know judges had judicial immunity
yeah,
until there's a YouTube guy named a civil rights attorney in
yeah,
West Virginia,
yeah,
and he did one where the judge basically told the guy, "We're leaving this courtroom. We're going to your house and search your house." And the guy was like, "You're not searching my house." He goes, "We are," and they did. And he had no search warrant, she had no reason. The
yeah,
judge don't search houses, and she put up her judicial immunity. Now, the last time I heard, they had stripped it from her.
yeah.
The West Virginia Supreme Court had, and I guess it's getting on up to the Supreme Court. Whether they hear it or not, that's a different story.
And
But
see, that's the other
like,
part about the that community is um, they investigate themselves.
yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean?
like,
It's kind of the fox in the hen house kind of thing. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
right,
It's kind of you know when it's my brother-in-law over there who just beat up the 80-year-old man. We find nothing wrong with what he did. I mean, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
happens a
yeah,
lot. You see it a lot. And
yeah.
what I do wish about those videos is I wish there was a lot more follow-up to them because they kind of end on the they always end on the yeah, I'm gonna sue you, or that kind of, and they're just short
Yeah,
videos, right? So
yeah. I follow this. I mean, civil rights guys, because he does like he'll do a video, then he'll be like, when a follow up, when something happens, he'll come back and say, okay, I did this video 6 months ago, and here it is. Here's what's happening now, and here. But it's 6 months wait sometimes, and you're like,
yeah, yeah.
kind of lost interest,
Well, that yeah,
and
that and the process is people just always. It's funny. I hear people say things like, "I'll sue you."
yeah,
What are you going to sue them for? You're going to get $50. It's going to cost
yeah,
you $20,000 to get you $50. You don't
In 2 years.
in 2 years of your life. Yeah. So that never really happens. I don't think in my mind. I,
No.
I think that probably happens about 1% of the time. You know,
Yeah.
it's more about now. With this, your camera sitting in front of you, and you got a way to record and upload in 30 seconds. That the transparency is what it's about now, right?
Yeah.
So people are being held to a different standard because of transparency.
Yeah, and it should be. It should.
Oh,
That's why.
absolutely, absolutely.
That's one reason I like the videos. Besides, they're just absolutely. It's like watching Cops,
Well, exactly, and that's why Cops was
and
popular, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I remember watching Cops, and they would be like, "Okay, they're following two women. Okay, get the popcorn out. This is gonna be a good one because these women,
yeah.
every time there was two women, they had a different way about going about things.
Well, yeah, and that kind of comes from the mindset of being, I hate to say it, but they're women in a man's world, right?
Yeah,
They not only they have to prove themselves, they got to like double prove themselves, kind of,
yeah,
because
they're-
let's be honest. A woman rolls up on a 6'5", 350-pound guy. What's she gonna do?
right.
She gonna tase him? May or may not work.
That's right.
Then you're out of taser. So yeah,
Yeah,
I don't envy the job. They got a very difficult job. I wish they came at it different sometimes. And I'll give you another story. Here's a very good story. Someone very close to me got in a car accident recently, and they were trying to be as not. It was their fault. Completely admitted it was their fault. Rear-ended somebody at a stop sign, and it was getting a ticket and was trying to have a conversation with the police officer, and the police officer was just completely rude
mm,
for no good reason, no good reason other than maybe I don't want to be here, whatever, having a bad day. Everybody has a bad day, I get it, but when you're a civil servant, it's a little different. You got to treat the public with respect, and it just fuels when you hear that. Now that we've talked about how much I like watching these dumbass reels. Um,
yeah,
it kind of fuels that a little bit, And you're like, hey, who was it? I don't envy the job. It can be very difficult. I'm sure I have plenty of friends and family that were police officers, and some of the worst stories I've heard. You don't on your day to day life. You don't realize how people are sometimes, and then you hear stories like that, and you're like, how do they get there? How do they get there? It's a weird.
yeah,
That's kind of what I think about, and when I hear these stories about people, I'm kind of veering off and all over the place, but um, there's these people. I, I just it's I don't understand it, and I think that's what gets me down these rabbit holes sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes you just want to understand it. It's not understandable, and I kind of think I know that, but you kind of want
Well,
to.
that's like the Falwells, right?
Yeah, sure.
I'm not into that. I'm not into liberty. I'm not into that
I
zone
am.
like you are. You live there, but like what happened to him?
Yeah,
He's supposed to be all these religious guys, and next thing you know, he's having a throuple.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Well, yeah, yeah. The whole pool boy story. On
yeah,
on Wednesday he was the savior, and on Thursday he was the pariah.
yeah, right,
That's how quickly you can fall, especially when you're in
right.
a
But
position like that. So
yeah, and you just want to talk to him like, what's wrong with you?
yeah, hey, everybody's got their thing, right? And I don't care what your thing is, but when you're a figurehead of the community, and you're supposed to be living this proper life, and maybe you don't hire the pool boy to you know do things with you,
yeah,
So
yeah, because yeah, right. You're the head of a religious organization.
yeah,
It's not like
like billions
you
of dollars running through it, and yeah,
right,
and you're basing it on a very squeaky clean image, right? So
you're right. I mean, if the owner of Hooters that was out in the news, you'd be like, oh well,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
But
As long as you didn't
you
take
own
advantage of him, man, it's just doing what he does, right? So
right,
yeah, it's
but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I get it. It's and those, like I was saying earlier, that's kind of reason why I think I'm so interested in it. Not only is it, I'd like to say it was for all this high and mighty stuff, like I'm all for transparency and the Constitution and all that, which I
Hmm.
kind of am. But I did my, it's entertaining to me, I think, because it's entertaining to me, and it's people and how they get there, you know. And I don't ever get the resolution to it either, so I guess that's what feeds me to go to the next one. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's
I
weird.
know I can't stand it. You be like on. I'm not a big TikToker, but like sometimes you'll be watching one and you'll be like, okay, I want to see part two, and you go try to find, and there's never a part two,
Yeah.
you
So
know,
you
and it's
get
like,
completely left
oh,
hanging.
yeah, you're just like, I'm done with that channel.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
if you go,
yeah. There's a couple that I seem to go back to quite regularly, and they're very entertaining, and they're very straightforward. And you know, I think the thing that I appreciate about it with these auditors is that, um, at least the ones I watch, because um, the ones that are baiting, I kind of move.
yeah,
I kind of get away from that. That doesn't
oh yeah,
interest me. Um,
I
it's
like the Long Island audit guy
Yeah,
who
I do
goes in and
too.
takes,
And don't get
yeah,
me wrong, he's baiting,
yeah,
but he's not doing it. He's doing it subtly, and he's not doing it like, like, hey,
yeah,
all he's saying is, hey, I'm doing a constitutionally protected activity here, and there's really nothing you can do. There's no restricted sign. He's baiting them like that, which is pretty subtle. He's not like in their face, and there's some that are, and I kind of stay away from that. So the ones that are calm and come in and just state while they're there, and try to go, you know what, I can make you look good or I can make you look bad, you
yeah.
know, and it's all on you. It's how you react, right? So
And it's what got me is like, this has been 15 years ago, probably way before all this started. I was going through Georgia, and I was in a rental car. I was driving back from one site to another, and got pulled over in Georgia, and I didn't know nothing. I was in a rental car with Illinois plates, Kentucky driver's license, you know, and the guy pulls me over. You know why you get pulled over? Of course, you're just trying to be nice, blah blah blah. And he says, "Can you search your car?" I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So I get out, and he puts me in the front of the car in handcuffs,
oh boy.
like at the hood, and I'm like, "Wow." He said, "That's for my safety." And I'm sitting there thinking, "Wow, this is crazy." Then he goes through the whole car and he pulls all my luggage out and everything, slings it all over the side of the road. Probably not as bad as I remember, but
Ain't bad enough.
it was everywhere. Bad enough. Then he comes back and he takes the handcuffs off and he doesn't write me a ticket. I guess that's one good thing. He says, "Well, have a nice day." And all my crap is all over the road, like my suitcase, my
Nah,
clothes, my computer, and everything. And I'm
yeah,
like,
and he's just
what?
fishing.
And he's just fishing. And he gets in his car and drives off. And after that, I was like, I'm going to have to figure out one. That's why I don't speed no more, really.
Mm-hmm.
Is figure out exactly what I have to do. What's the law? What's the rules? What's everything? And I kind of did some research and found out, they pull you over. You don't have to talk. You do have to give them your driver's license, your registration, and your insurance. You have to give them that. If they ask you out of the car, you do have to get out of the car. But what I learned is when you get out of the car now, is you get out, shut the car off, roll your window up, shut the car off, get out, lock it, stick the key in your pocket,
Yep.
and don't consent to any searches
Yep.
because there's too many cops planting. I
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how many are planting,
I don't either,
but
but they're
there's
definitely
an
fishing.
they're fishing,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I haven't had that happen to me since because I really don't speed a lot,
Yeah, I don't either.
um,
So
and it's just not worth
I actually got pulled
the
over
effort. But
recently, and you also got to know your limit, right? So I
yeah,
was on my way to work, admittedly going faster than the speed limit. Pulled me over.
yeah,
You're at their mercy at that point. Here's my license. It's a rental car. That's all I got to tell you. But you know, break. He cut me a break, gave me a warning, and I was on my way. But if you get pulled over for no stinking reason, which seems to happen a lot in these videos, um, it's different in different states.
yeah,
That's the bad part about we're like you and I when we're traveling to different states. I'm kind of at the mercy of just, I give them limited information, but I don't have to, I don't know how far I can go with that, right? If I lived
yeah,
in Virginia the whole time and I knew the letter of the law, and that might be a different thing. But I'm also not out at 3 o'clock in the morning shining lights at police stops, and a lot of these guys, they do pull up on these kind of things, and stand on the corner and watch,
Yeah.
and so they get the interaction that they're looking for.
It was like when we was over in me and you was a bunch of other guys was over in Antwerp that night, and Kyle was riding a scooter. We had rented those little lime scooters, and we was
Yeah,
running around. And well, there was only four, and there was six of us. And I can't remember who it was. He put somebody on the back,
yeah.
and they took off down the road. And the cop was like, "Hey,
Yeah,
come on over here. Let me
yeah,
talk to
that's
you
not
for
how
a
this
minute."
works. That's not how
That's
this
not how
works.
he's like, yeah. And he explained the whole situation. And I was sitting there thinking like that could have went bad,
Absolutely.
in a different world. But
Sure.
that cop was cool. And that night was about that whole night. That day and night was probably a good time. One of the best times I've had in a long time
Yeah, it
was
was a
running
good
around
time
that
for
town
sure.
on those scooters.
Absolutely. It was whoever came up with that idea of them dumb scooters. Uh, hats off, because
They
that got us
hats
around
off.
town, and we got to see, because we were only there what 28, 30
30 hours.
hours. Yeah,
Yeah.
So we saw a lot in that time.
Yep.
Saw a lot in that time. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
it was cool.
I was so I never said anything. I guess to be out there now, but that morning we went to eat breakfast. They'd picked like the House of Waffles or
Yeah,
something, and I was like, man, they're not gonna. This is not. It's like going to McDonald's, and trying to get a steak burger, and it was like,
yeah.
but they were kind of set on eating there, so I was like, yeah, we'll eat there,
Well,
and then they
they knew where
get a
it was.
bruised
They knew where
waffle.
it was.
Yeah.
They knew they wanted a Belgian waffle because they were in Belgium, and
Hmm.
it was close. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
and
the thing is, I knew where there was a coffee cart was at that sells like really good Liège waffles,
yeah,
and but I didn't know if he was open. I hadn't been there in 3 years, right?
right.
So I was like, we'll see here and
And I didn't know
run
nothing. I was
around.
just following the crowd.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And you got stuck with the bill.
yeah, that I did. That I did.
Yeah,
But they all paid me back, so it was good. Except Gino.
yeah. Gino, oh yeah, I didn't pay you back
Well, I don't think you owed me any money, so
either. No, that was fun.
there's kind of some question about who owes what now at this point, anyway. I think so.
Oh
I
yeah,
think I'm
yeah.
I'm winning at that probably, but
Yeah, so the first time I went over there, it was we took the boat,
yeah,
the ferry across,
yeah.
and I didn't even know the train existed until, and then we went back and we took the train. That train was the way to go. That was,
Yeah, I mean, I don't,
I
I
mean,
certainly didn't take the boat, but just knowing time wise, the difference
yeah,
made a huge difference. So,
yeah, because the train was like we got there early, so we got on an earlier train, which was good. I mean, you couldn't. I thought we were going to miss it because remember I went in, got our ticket for the earlier train, and then everything closed. Right, everything shut
yeah,
down. All
yeah,
the
they had like
computers crashed.
yeah, some kind of computer problem. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sitting there waiting. I'm like, I don't know. We're sitting there waiting. They're like, I don't know if he's going to make it or not. I'm like, we're together. She's like, I
yeah,
don't care.
yeah. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter to me. You're not in the same vehicle.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it
And
worked
then
out.
coming back, man, it was like,
Wow, what a
holy
hassle.
cow, what a hassle. That lady put us through the ringer for
Yeah,
nothing. I
well,
mean,
yeah. I mean, I've been out of the country a lot. That was by far the harshest interview I've ever had at a border.
yeah,
Yeah, by far. Um, she wanted I mean, not just our passports. She wanted to know why we were there, what we were working, why we were working there, I mean, it went on a good 15, 20 minutes, and that by
yeah,
far was the most intrusive border crossing I've ever had by a long shot.
yeah, and had to show them our return
Oh
flights
yeah,
and
flights too. I forgot about that. Yeah, we had, and it's a
yeah,
good thing we had return flights actually.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Because Gino, I don't think Gino had one. I was like, they're gonna
uh,
make him get out.
yeah, well, yeah. Sorry for you. You're going to be stuck in France. We aren't.
Yeah.
I would have helped as much as I could, but
No,
I
I
don't know
wouldn't.
what the heck we
I
could have
don't.
done at that point.
I don't know
I
either.
guess we,
And then the other guys in the other car, I knew they had all that. They had the same stuff we did, so I knew they were probably
yeah,
good. So
yeah,
and
cool trip though,
yeah,
for sure.
cool trip.
Yeah,
I love that little bar downtown. I love the plots, the Grunen plots,
yeah.
that
It
area.
it was really neat, and I'm always amazed
Yeah,
when I go to different European cities, just because it's so different than America.
yeah,
I mean, it's hundreds of years older to begin with, and a lot of it, even through World War II, a lot of it's still intact.
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
kind of cool, you know.
Hmm. But the Muse, that bar I took you to, I think it was probably the last club we went. I
Yeah,
love where you go up that spiral staircase, that
yeah,
old
that was a
spiral
cool place.
staircase and stuff.
I did find
Yeah, I
out
really
pretty
like that
quickly
bar.
that that beer was pretty strong.
Oh yeah, that triple Carmelette.
Yeah, yeah, I had
Yeah, yeah,
pretty strong.
yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, I got it. He's got to try that.
Oh, it's
Because I
good.
can't drink the beer, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was good.
and I just heard stories from the other guys when we was over there. Spent a lot of time there, like in
Yeah, yeah,
2018.
yeah.
A lot of guys would talk about that beer, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna get Dave to, because I know you're a cigar and a beer and a cigar guy.
Yeah,
Couldn't drink. Never did find no cigars there. We did find some in London though.
yeah, yeah. That was a nice night that night too when we went to
Yeah,
London because it was kind of we did some cool stuff just looking around at stuff. But then we
yeah,
we kind of found that cigar lounge and it was. I'm not a real social person in social settings. I'm
yeah,
not real good at that. I think it's me for sure.
yeah,
Um, I'm just not. I'm not comfortable in social situations where I don't know people. But when I go places with people, once things kind of get the ball kind of gets rolling, I kind of open up a little bit. But yeah, that night was kind of neat. And I'm kind of reserved sometimes about telling people what I do for a living because you just never know the
yeah.
reaction you're going to get. Um, but we actually ended up talking to a gentleman that was living there that was from Canada of all places,
Yeah, I
and
remember.
and
Right.
uh, yeah, we talked to him for a little bit, and he I don't think he completely was on board with what we do, but at least he was knowledgeable to speak about it a little bit. So maybe it was
Yeah,
interesting. So
he didn't. Yeah, he didn't care. Like, I don't say he didn't care, but he didn't. He didn't want to make no deal out of
right, right.
anything.
And again, when you're in a foreign country, and we were there when we had just had a newly elected president. You
Yeah,
never know what you're going to get there either. So you know,
and I never been so. I mean, I've been never been as many places as you, but I've been a lot of places around the world, and like they, the English, they love that our election. I mean,
they
they
do.
talked about it every day,
And it's
and I was like,
weird
why?
because it's like a
You know?
direct opposite, like being in the States, um, where people in the States are just like totally consumed with the Royals. You know,
Yeah, no, it's
I don't understand it,
I
but
don't either.
but it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
so yeah, and they seem to be very very consumed with our politics for sure.
yeah. You remember the Canadian guy who had put a big bet?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And then I got to mess with him. He had put a bet like $1,000 on Kamala to win, and I was just like, I don't know if that's a good bet, man.
Yeah.
He goes,
It was,
oh, she's got it, she's got it. I was like, I don't know.
and
And
it was just way too close at that point. I mean, that's gambling, I guess, but whew,
that's gambling. Yeah, because it was like, I don't know the polls if they were lying. We really don't know, but
right.
it was a coin toss right up till the
It seemed to be. It seemed to be,
yeah, right up to the moment. And
and they had no idea. I think that depending on who you ask, I think the swing states, I think they thought weren't going to be like they were. They ended up, um,
yeah,
but
I've
yeah,
never been like I follow politics a lot, and I'll talk politics all day, but I've never had a president from when I was old enough to really remember presidents was the first Bush, I guess.
okay,
And then okay, so from there to now, you've always had the president be like, okay, he can do something, but not, it's not going to sink the ship. And the one even when Donald was elected the first time, you thought, well, okay, he's not. And then when Joe Biden was elected, you know what's going to happen there. But now it's 50-50 in the air to me. Now he can go and be the greatest president that ever been elected, right? He could do everything he wants to do, get our taxes down, deficit down, whatever, or he could run this thing plumb off into
the ditch.
the Mariana Trench,
Yeah,
all the way
yeah,
to the bottom. And
yeah. Well, and it
which one he does, I guess only time will tell.
yeah,
But
and that's kind of where I'm at. It's a time or tell kind of thing right now. Um,
yeah,
I I just know, um, in my mind which way I was going. of the two choices. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, me too. Me
It
too.
it
I was too.
it was pretty clear cut to me just the way the whole situation played out. But
Yeah, because for me, from a Kamala standpoint, it was nothing against. I'm not saying nothing against her. I'm not a big fan of her or
well, it was the
whatever. But
machine.
it's yeah, it was how the machine just put her in there. Right, there's no primary, no, and I don't know what you do when Joe Biden bails out that late in the game,
Well, yeah, that's the other
but
part of it, right? So
you don't just. To me, you don't just throw somebody in there, without. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that one is, but it wasn't that.
yeah, I'm not.
And
Yeah, that's kind of what I was meaning by that. And she went
yeah,
from a like we were talking earlier. On Wednesday, you're everybody hates you, and then on Thursday, she was like, "This is it. This is the one. She's the one. You got to vote for her now." Yeah.
yeah,
So
and
yeah, I
it
didn't like
showed that
how
they
that
did.
whole worked out, but
And yeah, and at the time of this recording, I don't whenever this gets published in the next week or so, but at the time of recording this, they're swearing in the new Congress right now.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's all new, probably a new speaker, maybe. The Republicans take over. Basically, they got the show. I mean,
yeah,
if
yeah. So we'll see. We got 4 years
that's right.
of
So
it,
that's
so
you go. You got. That's what I always say. You got no excuses when you got the reins. I mean, it wasn't like the last time. When he was kind of locked up a little bit, but now you've got it all.
I don't know
So
if I'll be
whatever
still
you want to
employed at
do.
the end of this one. I don't know. We'll see how the money
It,
situation works out, but we're
yeah.
getting close to that time. So,
Well, my old retirement boomed there for a while, but it's come back down
oh
now.
yeah, it always does, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a well regulated thing. It, if you look back at the history of it, it's always the
Yeah.
so make you happy
I've
for a
never
little bit, and then
seen
they pull it back, and they make you happy for a little bit, and then they pull
of it, and then they pull it back. Yeah. Yeah. Come on, man. Just make me happy all the
it.
time.
That's right.
Just don't 2008 me. Just don't crash
Oh yeah,
again.
yeah, that would be tough.
Yeah. Then we'll all be working till we're 70.
Yeah, yeah, that's when I bought my house. The end of 2007, I bought my house.
Oh.
Yeah, great
Well, the
idea.
good thing about our job is I always call it we're our gypsies. We're
We
gypsies.
are sure.
Yeah, running around is it's not say it's recession proof because it's not, but it's kind
It's
of is.
certainly hardened in that arena for sure.
Right.
Yeah, we
Because I remember when they like 2008 when it happened, they were the outages and the work we were doing. They cut the scopes a lot, but you still had to go do the maintenance.
absolutely.
And then COVID-19 was the same way. These outages went really short
Yeah, they did,
because
but we didn't really slow down much.
no,
We just
no,
you just had to maybe do something a little bit different.
yeah,
And
yeah,
as time passed, that actually kind of helped me, and you as well, probably.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, help me a lot too.
expanded my abilities a little bit. So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, got more skills.
yeah,
I'm gonna say,
yeah.
yeah. So then that's good.
Again,
So
I want to feel you out a little bit about what happened over the last couple of days in New Orleans, seeing how we're getting ready to be
oh
in that
yeah,
neck of the woods.
I know.
I mean, that's like you said,
Well, that's the second one, right? That's there was another one. Where was it?
it was in. Gosh, they said it the other day too, and I can't remember. Hmm.
But it's kind of like I know there's a my dad told me about it the first one and I was like man that's a Stephen King book. There's a Stephen King book called The Mercedes Killer, and during that book he drives his Mercedes through a job fair, like a job fair type. People were lining up to go and that's the first thing I was like somebody's been reading Stephen King
Yeah.
and kind of
It,
took that on, and then it really does turn into monkey see, monkey do. I really believe that.
oh yeah, I
It's
do
like
too. I think there's a
the
lot
guy
of
did it.
copycat things out there. They go, "Ooh, I
Yeah,
could do that in my town or
right.
wherever." They just
Yeah,
they get motivated by it. I think,
I
for
really
lack
do
of a
think
better
that.
word.
And I don't know, man. It's like New Orleans is such a happened at the Superdome, right
What
down by the
it was right
Superdome,
on Bourbon Street.
Bourbon Street. Okay, I really wasn't sure where it happened. I
Yeah,
followed it, but by the time I caught the news, they'd already
yeah.
talking about other things
Just in watching
about it. But
just in watching the coverage of it, it looks like he just was driving down the street, kind of already knew what he was going to do, but drove right around the barriers on Bourbon Street from Canal and just like 70 miles an hour for 8 blocks.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
Ooh.
And it was in the 30s or 40s of the amount of people that he actually made contact with. And I think they're up to 14 people that passed away.
15,
15?
yeah, 15, including him.
Yeah,
So 14
yeah.
victims and then him.
And just mowed through the crowd till he hit there was a mobile crane in the middle of Bourbon Street a couple blocks down, and he just ran into it. And it looks like he just hopped out and started shooting. Um, and I was watching this morning that he had planted a couple homemade pipe bombs too. So they got video of him setting coolers down, and you just wonder where this guy drove all the way from Texas to do that.
And he was
Said ISIS.
correct me if I'm wrong.
They said ISIS.
Yeah. But he was a vet.
Yeah. No, yeah. And they have they intercepted some, and I'm just going by what you hear on the news, but they intercepted some social media or texts that he was planning on hurting his own family, but he didn't think the message would be out there as much. It would just be a local news story, so he wanted to do something a little more grandiose. He sure did. He did, and that's what terrorism's all about, right there, man. You put people in fear like that. They shut that whole area down. They stopped the Sugar Bowl for 24 hours. I mean, yeah, he put the terror in people for sure.
Yeah, but I've always been under the impression, and we've talked about this in the past, like just block that off. There don't need to be no cars down there.
Well, I agree.
Bourbon Street.
I agree.
Just
and
make that a pedestrian only area.
Absolutely. And they actually have those. I think they're like air operated bollards. Like we have at the site. The ramps that come up. So that they can stop. And I think they only cover the street. And this guy kind of went around all that. Sounds like. He went right down the sidewalk to get access to, but he also went 8 straight blocks.
Yeah.
At high rate of speed, mowing people over. So I mean, and there was some talk this morning about maybe those bollards weren't actually working correctly. So I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know either.
It's easy to talk about in hindsight, right? What we should have done. But I agree with you. I think as many people that are in that area, 99% of the time, you would think they would have a little bit more secure than letting actual traffic come down through there.
Yeah, and I always that's one thing I did like European cities where they have the city center, no cars, nothing. They have a taxi zone. You go parking over there.
Yeah, and they have a big area for people in large groups to gather at without worrying about auto traffic.
Yeah, all you do is get run over by a lime scooter.
Yeah, bunch of Americans rolling through. Yeah. Which I'm completely surprised we escaped Belgium without doing that. So
I thought I was dead that one time, Bo. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah.
I had the green light, and that truck just come through there.
He was. Yeah, that was close for sure. For sure.
All right, buddy. So we've talked. That's an hour and 10 minutes. Went by pretty quick.
Yeah.
So we ended here, and appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
if you know anybody who would like to just come and talk, and
I'll
get the word out.